life, what you thought of with worldliness. Now, what Brother Ross is going to get to, this is what it's all about. I know this is what a lot of you thought. Maybe you still think this. There's certain things that I like to do. Perhaps I'm doing them now. I'm tempted toward, I want to do. And he's going to tell me that God says no. And that's going to be the whole business. That's what worldliness is all about, is you're tempted towards something. You want to do this, or you enjoy doing that, and someone is going to come and tell you that you can't do it. Some temporal, physical pleasure that maybe you either don't think is a sin or you don't know whether it's a sin. And someone is going to come and tell you no. And then you have all of these Freudian overtones that secrecy is what produces temptation, or prohibition is what produces temptation, and if you tell them no or you don't talk about it, then we're going to be tempted, and on and on and on. So a lot of Christians have a hard time, quote, surrendering, unquote, things to Jesus and walking in obedience. They have a hard time resisting physical, temporal evils around them. And I think that is because temptation has to be unmasked. Whenever you unmask it, I don't fall into this bit that secrecy produces temptation, or that prohibition produces temptation. But I do think that secrecy, if it's not necessary, needs to be avoided then. Let's go back to our earlier arguments of those who were world deniers. Remember how I've tried to caricature that along the line? That these superstitious, legalistic people really don't know anything about the evils. They just think of them as the big, bad boogeyman, the big, bad evil. And they're almost tempted through curiosity to either investigate or experiment because they're curious about the matter. They're genuinely curious about the matter. And I think that temptation has to be unmasked so that people aren't curious about it, so they know what it's about. And you can only unmask temptation, I think, with knowledge. You have to be told what the matter is, what the issue is all about, rather than just, as I've said this in other ways before, instead of just telling your child, no, no, no. Why? Unmask that whole situation they're involved in or want to involve themselves in. If you just say no, the secrecy may lead to temptation in their life and may lead to involvement in it later. Rather than just say, well, Playboy's bad. We're not going to talk about it. We're not even going to say the word. Do you recognize there are some churches you couldn't say that word Playboy? You couldn't say that in the pulpit. That'd be wrong. There'd be a lot of tension in the church. And you certainly couldn't hold up what I've held up. And I would never bring a pornographic picture, and I would never look at a pornographic picture. But you couldn't bring this, the cover to Playboy, and hold it up in church. There'd be just something immoral about that. You'd be kind of afraid that you're going to give thoughts to a lot of the teenagers. You're going to give thoughts to some of the younger people. You're going to give thoughts to some of the weak men in the church. If you even mention that, so don't even talk about things like that. I think you're going about it, as my dad used to always say, bass-ackwards. Because what's going on here is because you're not giving them knowledge about that, they don't know. The only way they're going to ever find out is they're going to investigate themselves in. That the way to cure a person of temptation is to unmask what the temptation is all about. And the only way to unmask it is to unmask it with correct knowledge, with Christian knowledge. I don't think that you have to go to a sex clinic or have some sexologist to come in and tell you all about sex so that you're cured from it, because they'll often produce more undesirable things than they'll cure in you. But if you can have enough knowledge, enough of the right knowledge about something, then all of a sudden, what Satan, he has this way, remember in Screw Tape Letters, of blowing up something so big, so out of proportion, makes it so enticing, like he did the tree to Adam and Eve. There wasn't so much of that good anyway to that tree after all. But he has a way of blowing it up so much that unless someone comes along and tells you it's not what you think it is, you feel tempted in that area. If someone comes along and tells you, you don't know, adultery is not what you think it is. It might sound fun to you. But let me tell you something about what adultery is all about. Where that will lead you, how you'll end up in your life. Then all of a sudden you get a picture of the horror of the whole situation from God's point of view and from the moral point of view. And you don't see that as a little fun thing to bed hop around the office anymore. As long as that's all you hear, words like bed hopping, those kind of have a little ring of temptation to them. But when someone says, wait a minute, you don't know how bad that is. What a cancer that will be in your soul and your spirit. It'll kill you, it'll destroy you. Till someone tells you that, this is my belief, that you're always leaving the door of temptation open to people.
Right. Amen.
So, let's talk about pornographic material just a moment. And let me discuss this in a conversation, with you being a speaker and I being another. You would ask me, when you walk past a magazine rack with pornographic magazines, aren't you tempted to pick up one of them and look at them? And let me just add in a footnote here, or a parenthesis right away. Pornographic already kind of sort of dilutes the sexual attractiveness to it right away. I don't know why that word ever came up and has stuck so long. Pornographic. That kind of sounds like garbage. Or even if you call them a girly magazine. A girly magazine, that kind of waters it down to third grade level or something. Or a dirty magazine, they're also called that. For the world out there and for Satan, I think this would be my argument if I was on their side, which I'm not. You need to think of a better name for the material. These have kind of bad overtones to them right away. They dilute the sexual attractiveness. Anyway, I would say no. Oh, but aren't you tempted to maybe want to undo that front cellophane or just open the magazine and look? No. So you'd say, why? Is it because the women inside are ugly? You know how people present this? Oh, that's bad, that's bad. Is it because the women are ugly? Hardly. That's hardly true. The magazines wouldn't sell if they were. I mean, in other words, let's don't pretend that things aren't when they are. That's one of the very things that leads to temptation in people's lives. Don't get too stiff out on me this morning. You just probably don't know. The Spirit of God knows where things like what I'm saying right now will touch home. You just might not know. So don't be critical of me until you're certain that what I'm saying is so off the wall that no one needs to hear it. So are the women ugly? I would say hardly. That's hardly the case. I'm sure the girls of the Ivy League or the Southeast Conference are just as luscious as ever. That's not the issue. Oh, it's because they're not sexually attractive. No, on the second count as well. I'd be just as dumb to deny this. Then why aren't you attracted or tempted? You see, a lot of people, they try to overcome temptation by denying that it exists, by denying that it's real, or by saying to themselves, wait a minute, I'm a Christian, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm not supposed to be attracted toward that. I'm supposed to think these magazines are garbage, the women are ugly, they're all nincompoops in there. When you pretend what is as though it isn't, that's the first step in a fall right then. When you don't recognize this situation is true. Those magazines are alluring. Maybe to some men more than others, maybe to some women more than others. Those magazines are alluring. If they weren't, they wouldn't be so sinful as they are, and Satan never would have promoted them. To deny reality is the first step in causing yourself to fall later on. See, it's another position when you're willing to admit, yes, the women are beautiful, or yes, whatever the woman thinks about the men in those magazines. Yes, 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 I would respond. It's all obvious. No, my wife doesn't look like most of those women in there. That's obvious too. No, my husband isn't Charles Atlas Jr. He's kind of flabby in certain places. Whenever he takes off his coat, the shoulders come off with it. So he's not like these men that I've seen. That's the first thing you've got to be willing to admit. You're a fool not to. You're saying, well, everything's pretty much equal. That's not true. Equal as far as looks are concerned, that's not true. Of course, what we would ask would be something like this: are looks the only thing? That's what the magazines try to tell us. See, they have a certain philosophy. Looks, that's it. Looks, that is it right there. We think there's more to life and more to the human body and to human nature than the way they look on the outer man. Now, this is one of the surest ways to fall. Whenever a man walks by one of these magazine racks and just says, oh, it's nothing there, nothing at all, no problem at all, he says, yes, if I would give into my flesh, that could be a problem. See, he's chosen not to, but he's chosen to for some other reason than what I think of the typical fundamentalist reason of just putting all that kind of in a bad, smoke-filled, kind of dark room so that you don't know anything about it, you don't know pro or con about it, but you're curious about it. If someone can tell you something of the issue, if you can be honest enough with yourself to say, I know what's in there, and I know it looks good, but just what meets the eye isn't everything, though. You can take some of these first steps, and it's not just true with this temptation. Whatever the temptation is that you're tempted toward, you've got to unmask the temptation. Say, be willing to admit it is a temptation. That's what makes it wrong. If I wasn't being tempted, I mean, God doesn't tempt you to do good. He just offers it to you and you do it. Temptation is a give and take. It's a, well, I feel like I should go toward it, or I want to go toward it, but I know that I can't. Temptation is the give and take thing. You take a step, but then you say no, you take two back. Following God isn't that way. That's what makes temptation the evil that it is. And it's not true just with pornographic material. It's true with whatever it is that you're tempted with. Look at James chapter 1, verses 13 through 16. First step in overcoming temptation is recognizing that it is a temptation. I am being tempted here. Don't ask yourself, what's wrong with me? I'm being tempted here. The Bible doesn't say you won't be tempted once you get saved, does it? It says that with every temptation, God will make a way of escape so that you can bear it. I think a lot of Christians try to tell themselves, I'm not supposed to be tempted. I've sinned because I've been tempted. The Bible never teaches that. If that's true, then we have a sinless Lord also, because he was what? Tempted in all points like as we are, yet without sin. Oh, that means temptation is not sin. It's what it leads to that's sin. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. That's what happens right there. You're enticed for something. And all of a sudden, what the Christian generally feels, I think it's quiet in here this morning because you may be surprised with some of the things I'm saying. But what the Christian feels is my enticing. I've already sinned now. Because something is appealing to me. Something is enticing to me. See, some things aren't to some people and are to others. If you used to smoke, maybe cigarettes are just out the window totally for you. But I've heard other people say that they remember what a good long drag after a full meal used to taste like. And they could easily do it again and get the same pleasure out of it. One person who told me this, and I never liked cigarettes. I tried them when I was, 13 and hated them. So see, I would never be tempted in that area. But what this person was saying was, I know enough about what's going on that I don't have to pretend something's not true when it is. I don't have to say, well, now that I'm a Christian, cigarettes wouldn't taste good anymore. Maybe for some people that's true. Maybe for others that's not true. Cigarette would taste as good as to a lost person. They have chosen on another basis, not on the basis of taste. They've chosen on another basis not to indulge. That's what I'm saying. And the same thing is true with this pornographic material. It's not that it's not sexually appealing. It is. It wouldn't sell if it wasn't. It's how do you deal with that then? Are you willing, first of all, to make the most obvious admission that it is sexually attractive? See, just because I throw in that word sexually, that gets people confused. But every temptation is attractive, or it wouldn't be a temptation. Are you willing first to say, it's attractive? This attracts me. The attraction itself is not wrong. I cannot fall. I cannot give in to this. I cannot surrender. Because when I do, I've gone beyond just the enticing of that. It's a allure and its appeal that it has. And I have sinned. This is a deeper area. I'm not trying to be exhaustive in it, because we might want to take that a step further and say, well, if a person consistently resists temptation, then after a period of time, perhaps does that thing cease to be tempting anymore? That may well be true. That may well be true in a lot of cases. Maybe that may well be true in every case. We just have to wait and see how many times, how consistent you are in resisting. You'll have to wait and see. Find out, now, does this just cease to be enticing, period? I couldn't even be enticed in this. Every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. Oh, we didn't have sin until now, you see. Now, he doesn't mean lust in the sexual sense here. He just means a desire that points you in a certain area. He said when lust has conceived, whenever you've let it dwell there long enough, then it produces what we call sin. But notice the steps involved here. This first attraction is not sin. It can lead to sin and often does. And sin, and here's what we would think of about temptation. Not only will you fall, it will produce sin, but here's the conclusion. Sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. James gives us a good, succinct theology of desire and temptation and sin and death here. And we need, as Christian people, to be freed from these false fundamentalist notions of, well, this is just so wrong that I won't even think about it, and yet we know as we go through our daily life we're still enticed in that area. And somehow we don't know how to reconcile the two. And oftentimes it produces more defeat and more turmoil in the person's life than God ever intended or than is necessary. If someone can clue you into what the whole situation is, what it is you're tempted about, they can tell you what's wrong with it, the dreadful evil behind it, and tell you that your temptation toward that is not a sin, as long as you don't fulfill that, then perhaps we can help one another get away from being even tempted in that area anymore. So let's go back to our issue of pornographic material, or you could put in, as I say, in any area of attraction, sexual attraction, or some other tempting attraction. No, the above reasons that you might have suggested why I would not be attracted to the material, they're not valid. I understand intelligently and intellectually, I trust, how horribly detrimental sexual looseness is to our moral nature. And I've certainly seen in our society how detrimental it is to society at large. Who would ever have thought that just a freer, looser form of sexual more and ethic would have the catastrophic consequences it has had over the last 20 years? The breakdown in marriage and the breakdown in family. Hey, as long as you stay married to someone and have some affairs, what is that really going to do? We've seen from society how dreadfully wrong that is because of the consequences it has produced. Maybe we can't, maybe you don't understand, I think most of you do. Maybe you can't see, though, on the inside of you how dreadful it is. It is a cancer to your spirit and soul. Any form of sin that you fall into. And certainly the sexual is just as well. It's a very potent form of sin. When you fall into that, you have started a process of decay in your life just by looking at pornographic material. Because you're not looking to praise the God of heaven and earth for his creation. You're looking to lust. That's the only reason to read pornographic material. You're looking to lust. God himself put clothes on Adam and Eve. And whether we want to, these people want to go around and around in circles about, well, God made the woman's body so it's not sin. That's all beside the point. Whether God made it or the devil made it. God clothed the original couple after they fell. He didn't want them to be naked after they fell. He didn't want them to be naked in a fallen state. So whether God made their body or not, you're not arguing. That's not a part of the argument. That's just an extra side issue, whether God made the body or not. And we know that he did. That means the body is good. Good to be looked upon by someone you're not married to, that's not good. The Bible says that's not good. The body may be beautiful. God may have made it. That even may be a Christian woman or a Christian girl. God says it's not good to look at her. Someone has to tell you that, and you think, oh, all right, he's telling me that I might have that attraction, but he's saying it's not good to follow that. That's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying probably if you'll follow your biblical morals long enough, then you won't be attracted in those areas anymore. You won't be attracted at all. But you'll still be intelligent enough in the future to recognize the pornographic materials have beautiful women or they wouldn't sell copies. You're not going to be the fool that the fundamentalist is by almost denying their existence just to try to stay away from them. That's not the way to go about it. They almost deny their existence just to keep away from them. I don't think that's the right way. I think that's the first step in falling into temptation. And I'll tell you why. It's because you're living a lie. You're pretending what doesn't exist when in fact it does. As soon as you start living a lie, I'm not attracted, you say to yourself when you know that you are. As soon as you start living a lie, you're already morally wrong. And that's just the first step in a later fall in a person's life. You're going to say, I'm attracted. Look, I've got to do something about this right away. I know I'm attracted. I've got to do something about it. We're going to tell you many stories in the future of, in the church, not this church, but in the Christian faith, of cases of adultery and fornication that could have been avoided. Every case could have been avoided. People didn't know enough. People were afraid. You had this mentality that as a Christian you're not supposed to be tempted. And you know how strong I believe in good morals. I'm not trying to offer a watered-down view of Christianity or of moral perfection. But I am trying to be honest with the issue, as James is here. One thing then leads to another. What that woman needs to do whenever she's at home and her husband's gone all day and he's at work, he works with secretaries and other women, and she doesn't get the fellowship and the interaction from her husband. See, a lot of things need to be worked out in that marriage. But let me just give you a little typical scene how it runs. And she runs to the grocery store. And the manager, a clerk, pays attention to her. Says something kind to her. And if she had all of those things fulfilled at home, she wouldn't even think about it. When she doesn't, she's starving for attention and attraction. And she goes home thinking about that. I'm telling you, this happens all the time. Before you know it, this is built up into a friendship, a relationship. She knows it's wrong, but she can't seem to help it. And before you know it, they've had an affair. It starts with the milkman or the paper boy. And then it goes on to something. Then it goes on to divorce after that. See, we have to get back into that whole issue and stir things up. Surely they need something better in their marriage, the husband and the wife, so that she doesn't feel those desires, so that she doesn't have to look outside of marriage for them to be supplied. But even so, even if she can't get her husband to cooperate, you know what she could do? What I would recommend? Run to the best Christian friend that you have and say, look, something started here and help me stop it. We talked a long time ago about the open or the public confession of sin. Because you there on your own, it's kind of, you've created this silent, secret situation here, and you're thriving on the secrecy of it all. The man can go tell his friend, listen, I've got a problem. Help me through this problem. And all of a sudden, you've admitted it. You've admitted that you're tempted. I'm not saying they've done anything. Let's go back to the very beginning. They felt they've been tempted in an area. And they get some help in that area. As soon as a person pretends as though it doesn't exist, that's the first step of a fall. Well, it just doesn't exist. Or what they say to themselves is, but I'm a Christian, I'm not supposed to think that. I wasn't even supposed to like what that man or that woman said to me. What's wrong with me now? And we just start following that 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, and you end up with adultery, and you end up with a divorce. Now, adultery and pornographic material, that is perversion of God's plan. It will be a cancer in your mind and spirit and soul and body. These magazines can make that look so attractive. That is a cancer that will destroy you mentally. You don't even know. If you've never been involved, you don't know what it will do to you. It'll just wreck your sense. You'll be so distorted in your sense of right and wrong. Any temptation, when you start falling for it, sin is what has the leavening effect. It will leaven your existence and you don't know up from down or left from right. In other words, there's no such thing as just innocent participation in sexual sin. That's what the magazines say. It's just bed down for a night and you're on your way tomorrow. One night stand. It doesn't affect you. It does affect you. Because you have committed a moral crime. Here I'm getting to the bigger philosophy. In God's universe, then you will pay the consequence of that. As a man sows, so will he reap. There's no such thing as the Playboy philosophy of a one-night stand. Women are toys. They're expendable. You use them. They're there for your service and you throw them away. There's no such thing as that. Paul said, as we talked about recently from Screwtape Letters, when you have relations with a harlot, a prostitute, you've had more than that. You became one flesh. There's more in the psychology, you see, of the Apostle Paul than in Hefner's Playboy philosophy. And whenever we get to the sexual area later, and we deal in it in much detail, maybe you're not familiar with the Playboy philosophy, but the pictures are just incidental, by the way. They really are. Hugh Hefner started out with a philosophy that's become known as the Playboy philosophy, that is very involved, very detailed. The pictures are incidental to the whole issue. The philosophy, I think, is developed much more thoroughly in a lot of the advertising and a lot of the various written material that you find in the magazine. But be that as it may, a person has committed a moral crime in God's universe, you'll pay the consequences. It doesn't matter what the sin is. There's no such thing as just sinning and I just kind of got burned, but then that's all there is to it. Another aspect, these are aspects of why I wouldn't be tempted. Because I recognize I couldn't get away with it. You can't get away with it. You'll pay for it. You can pick up a pornographic material. You may think you're out of town and no one at church is around and no one's going to see you. You're going to pay for it. God will make sure that you do. You're going to lose your spiritual sensibility. Say, aren't you using some fear tactics here? Yes, I am. The Bible does use those. If it says, as you sow, so will you reap, and if you sow to your flesh, you'll of the flesh reap corruption, that's a fear tactic to me. That tells me if I sow to my flesh, I'm going to end up corrupting myself. I don't want to do that. That's a fear tactic then. Another aspect of why I wouldn't be tempted is I've made a commitment through marriage to my wife. Of course, that doesn't mean anything anymore in our society, but in olden days and in God's mind, it always does. That means a lot. When you make a commitment to someone else in marriage, you made a commitment to them, to their life, their soul, their body, not to anyone else's. And to look at pornographic material, you are violating the covenant you've made with your spouse.
Amen.
To commit adultery or fornication, you are violating a sacred, solemn pact that you've made with another human being. where you've said, I will take you for better or for worse, your good and your bad. I take you and only you for life. You have violated that. See, in other areas of sin or temptation, you might not violate this type of covenant. That's why I'm just using it, because we're talking about sexual material. And when women dress alluringly, let's get them in the picture too, out in public, and they're married, they are violating something that should be for their husband. You're attracting, whether you know it or not, and I think all women know it. If you want to know my chauvinistic view, I think that they know it. I don't think any woman just kind of grows up innocently, oh, I didn't know her dress is as low cut as her navel, oh, I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. I don't think you can grow up in this sexually explicit society as ours and think that you're doing something innocently. But let's assume that she's doing that. You're violating something that maybe wasn't said, but that's kind of understood in your marriage to someone else. That your body's not for other people. You don't dress in a way to show your body for other people. You just clothe it, that's all. You just clothe it. You don't clothe it so you attract attention from other people. You understand what I'm saying?
Amen.
That's a sin. In the eyes of God, that's a sin. Our culture has to hear that. It has to be shouted loudly and clearly today. That's wrong. That is a moral evil. We allow our philosophy of dress to be controlled by the fashion designers, by what's in, what's chic, what people wear around us. But they're controlled by the spirit of this age, we must remember. They don't know that there's some contract that they've made and that they're violating. They don't even know it. They don't even think of marriage as a contract, a sacred pact that you've made with someone else.
Amen.
It escapes their complete notice or attention. So there are lots of reasons why we shouldn't be attracted. And one of them isn't because the women are ugly. Maybe that clerk at the supermarket is a nice-looking young man. Your husband's graying and getting pouchy here and there, and this is a tall, nice-looking young man. Well, so what? Don't deny that. As soon as you deny that, you start living a lie, and you're on your first step to deception. But whether he's tall or good-looking or sleek as a cougar, that doesn't have anything to do with the matter. The matter is, who have you married? You've made a commitment to someone else. So it doesn't matter what he looks like, what he ends up looking like, or what other people look like. Although we'll say more about that later on in some other connections as well. So all I'm trying to do this morning with this example, and I thought it would fit here since I knew I was going to bring Jessica Hahn and maybe shock some of you reading some of the material, and maybe you're thinking, well, did he buy Playboy? Is it not a sin as long as you're a Christian? And no, it's a sin whether you're a Christian or not a Christian. Much more so whenever you say that I'm a follower of God to be reading Playboy magazine. So as I say, I put my wife up to that deed. Now, I know one person somewhere wants to get into that argument, but didn't you support the Playboy empire by giving them $4 for their magazine? Oh, forget about that. Who are you? What homosexual are you supporting out there by going to his store buying something? We don't want to get into all of that. But I'm just trying to help some of you realize what the difference is between sin and temptation. And yet not water it down, though. I'm not saying it's okay to be tempted, and just let yourself be tempted as many times a day as possible. Praise God, the more the merrier. No, because you're going to fall then. You got all these temptations bombarding you. But if someone can help unmask the whole situation to you, and I don't think I've done a very thorough job with sexually explicit material, but I think I've started on that road for you this morning, and it's true for every area. Someone can unmask that. If someone can unmask the fact that if you're not satisfied with your marriage and you marry somebody else instead, you carried your bad marriage into a new one because you came into it. And see, we're not told that. We're always told it's their fault. And if you can just get rid of them, they're clinging to me. If I can just get rid of them and marry someone better, it'll be better. No, because you always carry half of that bad marriage with you, at least half of it, maybe more, into your new marriage, and it's going to spoil the new marriage also. See, people don't tell us that. We're not told that in the mass media. Everything is cloaked over. We're always told we can have our cake and eat it too, and you can't. That's logically impossible. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You know what that old saying means? That you can have on your table a big, nice, round pound cake and just leave it sitting there and eat it and leave it sitting there at the same time. You can't do that. That's logically impossible. And that's what the media is always trying to tell us, that we can have our cake and eat it too. That's logically impossible. If we want the cake, we're going to pay with extra inches on the waist. You will pay for it, one way or the other. You'll pay, if not by that, by a sugar high, and then an hour later you just hit the depths of depression then because the sugar's drained out of your body. You will pay. There's no such thing in partaking of things and not having some result or consequence come from that. And that's what we're asking you to think of. What are the consequences of what I'm doing? Do these things lead me closer to God or away from God? That will be the issue whenever we get back to these vices of the fundamentalists up here. We have to ask ourselves the question, what do those things do for us? Closer to God, further away from God? What do they encourage in us? Good things, evil things? Or things in between? Is there any such thing when it comes to morals as things in between? And maybe in physical areas, don't these things always somehow touch us in some spiritual area in our life as well? So whether it's the man looking or it's the woman wearing, I mean, if whoever you are, woman in the church, if someone comes along and tells you that wearing that type of clothing, those clothes, those flashy clothes that are attractive to others, those clothes that cause a trickle of pride to run through your veins every time you look in the mirror, that the whole time you're trying to close your ears to what you're hearing from your conscience, and you're saying, doesn't matter, it's just clothes. But someone tells you that's wrong. And you kind of know because you have these little tricklings of pride run through your veins every time you look in the mirror. And they tell you, wearing that is wrong. What do you say? Where's the can of gasoline and matches? I want to rid myself of these. Or do you say, but wait a minute, but wait a minute, but wait a minute. My heart is right, or but this isn't, or but that's okay, or but... Are we willing to listen to various issues? There are many issues that will have to be discussed in Christian ethics. Are we willing to listen to them? Are we willing to be honest and say, you know what, I think that I'm attached to my skirt as my skirt is attached to me. And that's why my arguments are not so clear anymore. We have to enter this thing, remember, with our eyes clear, our mind unfazed and undazed, without reading all of our prejudices and biases into it, our own desires and thoughts into it. Or we're going to end up down a wrong road. Well, let me close with a verse over in, I believe it is in 2 Thessalonians 3. 2 Thessalonians 3. Let me just check. Second Thessalonians 3:4. Here's what my thought of you people is. Paul writes to them, we have confidence in the Lord concerning you, that ye both do and will do the things which we command you. I do have confidence in you because I believe that you're intelligent enough in the Scriptures that whenever you're taught the truth, you can hear the truth for the truth's sake. It'll sound like truth to you whenever you hear it. Whenever you put confidence in people, then all of a sudden it also seems to make them want to deserve the confidence as well. I think that's a process of maturity in every human being. I remember talking to one of you on the phone one evening who had had some problems where I was critical of you and your life because I thought you were sinning and you were continuing in it and you were not doing anything about it. And I had been rather harsh. But then I got this person back on the phone one last time before I hung up that night. It's been a long time ago. And I said, I just want you to know, sister, that I have confidence in you. That was all I was going to say. I'd been rather harsh with her. And you know what she said to me? She said, thanks. I really needed to hear that. You hear someone's got confidence in you when they have been critical of you because you've been wrong and haven't done anything about it. And they still got confidence in you. She said, thanks, I needed to hear that. This is God's letter to us. We all need to hear it. God says He's got confidence in us, that we'll do whatever He's commanded us to do. If He's got that confidence in me, it makes me want to deserve that type of confidence. God, if you save me and you think that I can end up okay in my Christian life, that's what I want to do to prove that your judgment of me, that your estimation of me was accurate, that you didn't make a mistake saying I have confidence in you and then I went and flubbed it all up on you. But you had confidence in me, and not that I merited the confidence, but I proved it to be true. I proved your judgment, your estimation of me to be true. Henry David Thoreau once said a long time ago, it takes two people to speak the truth. One to speak and another to hear. And so how true that is. I'm one and you are two.
Jesus.